And good morning, everybody. It's Matt Kern, and I'm here with our group. And I want to thank you for joining us. And it's chapter 4 with Patty Moeller. Technology, Patty. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Ooh, it's like a double-edged sword, right? Technology is a good thing and a bad thing. And, it's just great. So just want to remind the panel, if I do mute you or something, sometimes we get a little bit of feedback. So I might put you on mute. But if I do that, just make sure to unmute and then mute after you get done talking. But Patty, let's talk about this. Chapter 4 is such a great chapter. We're talking about technology and how good it is, how bad it is. And unfortunately, right now, with this current times, we're immersed in technology. Yeah. Right now, we're on technology, so we don't have a choice. And I know you and I will get to it as counselors and Ellen, and is that, that physical touch is not there right now. So talk a little bit about technology, and then we'll just, we'll kick into it with the group.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, everybody. And, one of the things that I hope that you just do right now is just introduce yourself. First name's fine, and where you're from. I think that's real important for everybody that's joining us to hear. So again, I'm Patty Moeller, and I'm in Jacksonville.
I'm Anthony, and I'm in North Carolina. And happy Mother's Day to you all early.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. My name's Ellen Menendez, and I am in Jacksonville, Florida also.
San Francisco.
That's right.
I'm Lindy Lemuel, and I also am in North Carolina and Southern Pines.
Alex Bodney, and I'm in Austin, Texas.
Hey guys, I'm Brandon Little, originally from Jacksonville, but currently out here in San Diego, California.
Lovely.
Awesome. And Judy, go ahead. I had to mute you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Judy Hicks, and I'm also in Jacksonville, Florida.
Great. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. I think this is one, I believe I said last week that I thought communication was probably the most passionate of my chapters. I don't know, this is right up there. So I am absolutely the person who sits on the fence of the love-hate relationship with technology. Absolutely understand that Matt's correct. We are using technology to do this. I could not have been running my business the last few months if I didn't have technology as well. And yet what people are so unaware of is how disconnected we are. When we cannot see facial expressions, hear intonation of people, the communities that are really suffering are the addiction communities that don't have that sense of connection, deeper connection. Everybody. We were discussing it in a larger panel yesterday of even in any of the divisions that we have that are guiding the United States, there's not a single person on there that's a mental health counselor. There isn't anybody that is on locally that is from the mental health world. And that's really frightening to me because this lack of communication is just so important right now. But I also think I just really want to open it up to the panel. And what do you think of this chapter? How does it affect you? Because I think it's going to be, because of today's world, a larger, broader conversation than just what I had in the book. Yet I think there's many points I want to make. So anyone jump in here.
This chapter was refreshing and very, very now.
Okay.
And it, like you said, it puts I have to deal with technology every day, but the texting thing, and you talk about it later in the chapter, is so impersonal.
Yeah.
And somebody could be genuine in a message, but when you put an explanation point on the end and you genuinely just having a conversation, it makes it seem like they're screaming at you.
Yeah.
And you could take that and go, why did they send that to me? And they didn't mean that at all. And then it comes down to as well, I have the boys in the girls group. I have the girls on Mondays and meet with their leaders. The girls log in diligently. The boys, I have to offer the boys something for them to log into the virtual Zoom meetings. And when they get on it, where's our incentive? Well, I didn't, your incentive is you get to meet with me for 30 minutes and they'll log off. And it's a sense of entitlement with them. And you're on your phone all day anyway, and you're doing on the computers, but to log in for something and get something rewarding, they seem to stray another way and don't want to do it. But the technology piece, even through texting, checking on the boys, it just seems so impersonal, and especially, and also spelling. And spelling, you know, I can't, and it's amazing because instead of all right, it's IGHT, I, and I can understand that, which makes it like, okay, what's going on with me? I can understand that they're saying all right, but it's I, you know, that type of thing. So the community, this chapter, Patty, was now.
Okay. Appreciate that.
So,
All
yes.
the others, because I'm so vocal about this one. So I want the panel to talk versus me kind of trying to jump in here. Anyone else? This is awesome. Judy, yeah. Hang on, Judy.
I would say also from a business perspective, you've got the texting and then you've got the email, and sometimes the messages are different, and it becomes so burdensome to have to keep a paper trail of that. Being a realtor, I have to do that. And I agree with Anthony. First of all, the slang in it, it goes against my being, and I'm like, I just want to say to people, do you not know how to spell? But the texting, I think, is worse because it's so impersonal, and then some people just go on and on and on and on. But I also see, I have a phrase that a friend said, the dining dead, where people go out to dinner or lunch and they're all sitting there on their phone. Dining dead. That's what I call them. And to me, that's extremely sad. I've actually seen people in church texting each other.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. What in the world? It's like, what, in my opinion, kind of what has happened is it's kind of lowered our standards. And it's lowered our expectations of how we should treat each other. And I find that sad, especially during all of this. And even people that you call and leave a message, they still text you back.
Yeah. Alex can join in.
So I obviously am of a generation that has grown up with technology, and I think we're using the word technology, but to me the chapter is really about a cell phone, not technology as a whole. As a cell phone is what the chapter is about. Are you guys struggling to hear me?
No, I just missed that word. Sorry, that was me.
It's giving
that was
me
age.
notifications. And so there's so much positive and there's so much negative. To kind of reiterate what you said earlier, I have, examples of positivity being my friends that I grew up with from high school, and we live, one's in San Diego who's on this meeting right now, and New York, Florida, California, Texas. I mean, we're all spread out all over the country. And so we started a group text message chain 10 years ago. And it literally, you can go back as far as you want in it. And it's our way that we stay in touch, because there's no way that 8 people ever have time to get on the phone and talk. And we're not all in the same place anymore. And so that's been an incredible way to stay present and up to date with what everybody's doing and what's going on in everybody's life. And is it the same as being together? Absolutely not. But it also is, I would compare it to 30 years ago. We wouldn't have any idea what was going on with anybody at all. So that's a huge benefit. And then you have the downside, to where I think my generation falls into being comfortable hiding behind the keyboard, so to speak, and would rather text or email or do something like that rather than pick up the phone or go have an in-person meeting. And I think it is simply, they don't have to, you can take less accountability for what you're doing if you're typing something versus saying it or being there in person. And I think it's simply a result of my generation, having grown up from the time we were 10 years old, having one of these things in our hand, and learning that that is an acceptable means of communication. And to Anthony's point and Judy's point as well, sometimes the spoken word, there's no replacement for it. And you can't put those tones and you can't put the connotation of your words in a text. You just can't do it. And so I find myself, I'll type text messages out, whether it's business, personal, whatever, and I'll read it and I'm like, man, there's 8 different ways that this could be interpreted. And I don't really want to leave that up for interpretation. So I'm going to pick up the phone instead, and they're going to know exactly what I'm trying to communicate. So again, to me, the chapter as I was reading it, yeah, it's about technology, but it's really about the cell phone and the impact that the cell phone, iPhone, whatever word you want to use, has had and is having on our lives every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things I want the viewers to know is what Alex said. I read this and I can take it 8 different ways. And from the book, you know that I did an experiment by putting "Have a great day" on a whiteboard and had 9 different versions. It was crazy to me. And for everybody to know, the way we interpret that is the brain is able to take the information in on the left side. What people don't understand is it does not travel over to the right side and have emotion. We have the emotion. It's just like Alex said, you can write that and have it said 8 different ways, because if I'm in a bad mood, maybe I want to go, well, have a great day, right? Because that's how I interpret it, because that's the mood I'm in, or I'm angry at you or whatever. And that's the key thing for people to know. Those little symbols on your text, on your phone, in an email, only go in the left side of your brain. That's the information side. That's our logic side. The emotional side, the right side of our brain, is what we interpret those symbols to be. So yeah, I love that side, that piece.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this. I'll play the devil's advocate, double-edged sword kind of thing here too, just like we're all talking about. And I'll use examples of my kids and then other people that I talk with and counsel, because, we talk about keeping everybody in a bubble, right? Our kids in a bubble. We don't want them. And you've heard me talk about this on drug prevention and stuff that I've been doing
Sure.
last couple of days. And you have to really educate your kids. Well, the phone and technology is a double-edged sword for young kids and parents, because a lot of parents see it. Okay, I don't want my kids on this phone. So I'm going to talk real quick about the double-edged sword is that, for example, my nephew, he didn't get a phone until he was in like the 9th grade. And he was the way last one of all of his friends. And it turned into a situation where he felt bullied because he was behind all of his other friends. And it was, oh, why don't you have a phone? You can't afford a phone. I mean, there are people just interpreting it the way that they wanted to interpret, where in reality it was, my sister-in-law wanting to really protect him and keep him and, away from some of that, the negative things that the phone bring in. So there is a double-edged sword that people have to deal with and parents have to deal with. Now with my daughter, from the time my youngest, because I have 3, my youngest, from the time she's had a phone, there's been a lot of communication about it, a lot of access with her social media, and she's learned a lot through that whole process. One more double-edged sword is that with my son, I'll tell you a quick story. When he got to college, I needed to go over and pick up the truck he was driving at the time, get it and go. And I was going to get new tires put on and get it oil changed and all inspected in North Carolina. And so I called him. I said, hey, I'm coming to pick up the truck. I need you to go over and get the temporary tag for the Ford Fusion, put it in there while you have the car for about 3 days. And he's like, oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? He's like, well, I can't do that. And I'm like, dude, it's right there. And he was like, well, I can't do that. And Anthony, you probably know this, right? They're so used to their communication coming from the phone. It goes back to what you said, Alex, is that pick up the phone, call somebody. And I was like, hey, it's already sitting there waiting. So what I felt like as a parent at that point in time is that I had facilitated him going, well, I don't know, I can't go get that tag, or feeling like he couldn't walk in and talk to the security, the police officer, the campus police, when the temporary tag was sitting on the desk waiting for him. It was already done. I'd already made the phone call. And so at that point in time, I was like, all right, done with this. He makes all his calls. I don't make the calls for him, and now he's got to get back to that face-to-face communication. And I adopted that with my kids, my 2 daughters, and made them sure that they're used to getting out and talking to people. If there's something that needs to be done, pick up the phone and call somebody, right?
Yeah.
This was another thing that drove me nuts is when we get done with the call and I would say, all right, bye, or see you later. And then they would just, some other people would just hang up.
Yeah.
We've forgotten to buy or talk to you later. So just some thoughts there. Double-edged sword. It's a powerful thing. It's a good thing. You're walking around with the computer in your hands. Again, we're on technology right now. My whole platform is based around technology, but it is. It's just a double-edged sword.
Brandon.
I'm going to jump in there with Matt. So growing up, me and my brother were home a lot. Dad was a truck driver, so he was gone. Mom was working, and she'd be like, call and order pizza. I'm like, I'm not going to call and order pizza. And she's like, what is your problem? I'm like, I have a phobia about calling someone on the phone. I just can't. So here I am calling in my younger brother, 3 years younger brother, going, hey, call and order the pizza. And to this day, I'm still exactly the same way. I'm not comfortable on the phone. I don't know if it's the lack of the face-to-face or what, but then opposite, my daughter, she'll call anyone, she'll talk to anyone, she'll walk up to a stranger in a store. Even at like 5 years old, I'm like, hey, I need you to go ask this person at Target if they have this or that. So sometimes it's the personality too, not just the technology, but the phone has made it easier for me because I can just order what I want online. Hey, you want me to order that? Sure. Let me see if there's an app for that. My husband laughs all the time. He's like, you have every app under the sun on your phone. I'm like, yeah, because that's how I function, and he even calls my phone my penis because I can't separate from it. Like I cannot separate from my phone. But, when you were talking about, and I was interested to hear Alex and even Brandon's take on this.
Yeah.
I find, the younger generation tends to be more comfortable with messaging and chatting and texting. Older generation still want that voice-to-voice conversation, written letters and stuff. And I feel like I'm kind of sandwiched in the middle. Because I have some friends that are older, they want to talk on the phone. But then friends that are younger, my age, we're okay just sending text all day long to each other. So it's really kind of, and I agree, Alex, it's not about technology, it's about the cell phone and how it's really kind of impeded our life. And we do rely on it to communicate rather than a face. And right now, in this day and age, I am missing that personal human touch. I am not an extrovert, so to say. I have to be very comfortable with you to just speak my mind and come out and, just be open. But right now I'm like, I am missing my people.
Yeah.
This is great, but this just isn't the same.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Brandon, you're joining in here, pal. Welcome.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
No, honestly, I think we could go on and on about this topic. It's something everybody deals with every single day, almost every minute of every day. I have my computer right here. I have my phone right here. And I would say most of us probably have our phone on us all day. I know I do. Don't leave the house without it. It's attached to me. And I think it's just one of those things that's how I grew up. Granted, I didn't get my phone till I was 16. Nowadays, kids probably get it even much younger than that. So it's definitely a generation thing. But when I think of this conversation, the first thing that came to my mind was like from a business aspect. Now that we're working remote, at least I am, it's kind of changed the way I have to think about communicating with my colleagues and even with my loved ones, where I have to remind myself every day to understand how somebody's going to take my message, because my girlfriend and I we're complete opposites. She's very bubbly on text messaging. She's very bubbly on emails, where I'm like a robot. I'm a very operational mindset guy, where I'm like, I'm not going to say hello, good morning to you. I'm just going to be like, hi, Jim. Just following up on this email. And it's like, so I have to remind myself that, all right, I'm gonna have to like understand what they're gonna perceive from this message and make sure I don't say it in a wrong way. But on top of that, I also have to remind myself almost with every email I send, do I have to send this email? Or essentially asking myself, is it necessary to send this email? Because it's so easy to type a couple letters and hit send. And that's how your email inbox gets overpopulated with unnecessary stuff. So I think that's one thing to take away, that it would be good for everyone to kind of think about before sending an email. Do I have to send it? Should I call? Because sometimes there's no need for a call. Sometimes a simple email is necessary. Maybe just to have the paper trail. I believe her name was Judy that mentioned that. Hit the nail right on the head. And sometimes you need that written conversation to have in paper trail, or if you need to hash out a couple details, scheduling a call to talk through it for 5 to 10 minutes is more effective as well. So
and I appreciate that, Brendan. One of the things that's so important to get out there, though, is how the empathy in the United States is down 40% than it was 10 years ago. And the only way that we as humans have any kind of empathy is that I can see your eyes, I can hear your intonation, I can see your facial expressions. It's happening a lot in my world. And I've stated in the book, if people, and I think, Alex, you know, you were raised, if you really want to know how I am, you pick up the phone and say, how are you? Because if you are texting me right now and saying, how are you? You're getting my standard answer. I'm fine. I'm okay. Because I don't have, what am I going to tell you? Am I really going to go, oh my God, I'm in a fetal position and it really sucks and I'm really suffering right now and I'm having a bad day? This conversation made me think of my dad and his suicide. And it took me back this morning as I was preparing for this. I was with my father every single day. Right? I was with him in his office, and then I'd see him in the evening, and I was sending out red flags to friends and people going, man, this is a man that's hurting. This is a man that's not in a good place. And everybody's like, he's fine. It's just that stage of life. And I was going, no. I have a feeling that if anyone else were around that man and could visually see him, people would have flown from the East Coast to see him. They would have picked up the phone. They were missing all the cues that I visually could see. And I think that's so relevant today. I know Matt talks about a young man that was writing a book. And if you want to tell the story, Matt, I'm fine about that. But my point is, unless we lay eyes on people, you do not know how they are. You do not know how anyone is if you just send over a message and say, I hope you're doing well. Call me if you need me, isn't going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we'll get to Lindy, but before I do that, I just want to read one of the comments out there, and I'll get back to that story later that you're talking about because that's an important one. But Grayson Marshall talks about, he's made a comment about our dependency, you know, how technology creates dependency. And I guarantee you we're all like this. We leave the house, you know, see how people act when their phone is broken, or they leave and they forget it. I mean, a lot of people turn back around and go get it because they feel
wallet, keys, never leave them out.
Yeah. And we use that. We joke around here. It's like, if you leave, I mean, I'm sure everybody uses, oh, I bet you leave the house without your phone, you feel naked, right? You feel like you don't have any clothes on. So you got to go back and get it. And so that's just one of the things, but like Grayson's talking about, it creates that dependency. We're all so dependent on this thing now because it's just so much a part of life that we can't separate. So Lindy, let's go to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have been digesting. I also feel like I'm in the middle between the generations. I was born in 1982. Proud of it. I'm going to just throw it out there. And I can distinctly remember one of the first jobs I had as a teenager in high school was working at a cell phone store. I can't remember what brand it was, doesn't matter. And I was overwhelmed because I did not know how to sell the devices that I was supposed to sell. And I was supposed to earn a commission from it. Meaning the more I sold, the more money I would make. And it was overwhelming. And they were just the basic, like cell phones, pagers, called them beepers back then. And it was too overwhelming for me, and I quit. I begged to quit. And my dad had essentially kind of negotiated that job for me. And I mean, I remember that just like it was yesterday. And moving on from that experience, I did have a pager, and I distinctly remember just having a deep feeling of independence and like lack of accountability from that moment, because I could go somewhere with my friends, and if that pager beeped, I'd have to find a phone in order to call somebody and respond back, and usually it was my parents. But that was my first experience and having that sense and feeling of independence. And I really didn't fully, I had a cell phone, I think after I graduated high school, but even at that point, I recently came across a book. It's a John Maxwell book. It's called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And I think that's where the line in the road is drawn today. Are we using technology with the intent of communicating, or are we using it now more so, especially being at home more often, to try and connect with people? Because there's two very different process, two very different things. And so I try to really, self-search, and who am I connecting with? My family, my close friends, my inner circle, my professional contacts, am I connecting with them? Or do I just—
So Lindy, I'm going to ask you a quick question, because I want to hear your answer on this. You're talking about connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
There is no connection with texting. There is an absolute joining, but so my question is, are you meaning by connection just like you and I are connecting? We're just side by side on my screen. We're connecting. But are you talking about a more intimate, I get to know you?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the difference between communicating, sending and receiving information versus making a personal connection with somebody you care about, somebody you said it best, can show and receive empathy, and to really build a relationship with for an extended period of time. And there's always reasons and seasons people come in and out of our lives. Mm-hmm. But what I heard just a few minutes ago is it's very difficult to make that connection and build that relationship when you don't have the body language, the facial expressions, even the, some of the voice inflections that you would get that matches some of that body language. And so to really understand how somebody is feeling and where they're at emotionally in their life, that's where the connection and building that relationship and being able to see on a human level is important for me. I text all the time with colleagues and friends. Texting, when I say texting, that's just me communicating, checking in, touching base. In my mindset, that's just from my perspective. But I really make the effort, and I will pick up the phone and call those who I have an established relationship, or maybe building a relationship with someone, a new friend, a new professional connection. If there's a more personal conversation, that even being online today doesn't really make that.
No.
There is a difference between, for me, face to face like we are right now, and then having a really personal conversation over the phone. And if I could share a story that really hit it home for me, this is brand new. This is just happened within the last month. I had a special friend of mine. I met her through the Air Force almost 12 years ago. And thanks to technology over the years, being military, you travel a lot. You don't always see people face to face after you depart the location that you met them. But we were able to connect on social media after several years. And then we found out we lived close to each other. So we made it a point to actually meet up face to face. And because we were good friends and we wanted to maintain that relationship. unfortunately, last month, I found out that her life was taken, and I hadn't texted her back in months, because for no other reason that life had been happening.
Yeah.
And it was it went to the pit of my stomach because I didn't send a text. A very different feeling than all the conversations we had had before.
Yeah.
It was like something dropped off and something is missing, and now there's a void. So it was a weird shift in my mindset. That text meant something, just the text itself.
That's a great point.
So it's very difficult, and I can understand all points of views.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I try to sit on all of it as well, and yet you're absolutely right. And somebody reminded me that even if somebody sends you a funny emoji just in the middle of the day versus going, God, that person could have called me, I had to switch my mindset to also going, that person's thinking about me right now. No matter that they couldn't reach, they might be sitting in the middle of a meeting. I don't know that, but something made them send me a a GIF, something. I've had to learn to try to change my mindset as well. Why are you laughing, Alexander Brown? But I've had to try to change my mindset that if somebody sends me anything, I have to remind myself, at least I'm being thought of. That person had me in their mind. I think let's talk a little bit about, and I'm very sorry for your loss, Lindy, because I know that it's a very vacant hole, and that's very difficult. Let's talk about, how much all of this is filtering out the imperfections. Because, man, there is a filter out there for everywhere. And not that she's filtering, but, Ellen's right now in San Francisco. Wink, wink, wink. Right? So the technology is there, but it's amazing how many things that I'm looking at and I'm like, wow, that person looks great. And I've realized that there's 15 filters on that person. The cheeks are looking great, the stuff. I have people that won't get on Zoom because they don't want to see themselves on this platform. I'm a little kicking and screaming on that one too. So what about that? What about the image that we're showing? Is it real? What's your all take on that?
Well, I'll go on that. As you can see behind me, my office is in my sunroom. So the sun goes up, the sun comes in, and it'll shift, and I'll get darker, I'll get lighter. And I'm sitting here going, this is very unprofessional, man. And I got a light on in front of me, and I can adjust it. And now when I do this, in a minute, the light will go back up from the sun. And I'm going, I know everybody's seeing this. So I have no filters. Now I could go to San Francisco. I did that one time. Or on here, you can go to the moon.
Yeah.
You can actually, you can have the moon behind you. So I just try to be natural. What you see is what you get. See, the sun just popped out again. See? So I'm in a natural setting right now. So this is me. No
but I'm
filter.
even talking about the filters for everybody looking better, right? I think that's one of the things that's really frightening for me.
Well, it's the filters to look better, but it's also what we put out there on the social media. Are they putting out just the awesome, wonderful, great things happening in their life? And, we go through bad times too, but we're more hesitant to share that, to open that up. I know the other week I was struggling big time. I messaged my best friend and her and me were talking, but there was no way I was about to put that on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. And not so much I didn't want people to know. I don't want to hear, oh, I'm so sorry, you're going to get through this, that kind of thing. I needed to just have my time. But yeah, I mean, people do filter everything through.
Yep, I got one on that one. I call it the Facebook fantasy world. Me and a buddy of mine a couple years ago, he called me and he was like, man, we were talking about this, and we just, I guess, between the two of us, called it the Facebook fantasy world, because a lot of times on social media and when you're out there, everything is just roses, right? My wife is great. My husband's great. we're on this trip, we're at Disney World, so to speak, everything is good. And we were talking the first conversation that we had about this, he goes, look at this, man. He goes, a friend of ours that we went to high school with, he said, if you looked at the Facebook fantasy world that they were putting out there, the filter that they were putting out there, both the wife and the husband, is everything was great. They're on trips. Everything's wonderful. Well, guess what? Both of them were having an affair on each other. Both they were on the brink of getting divorced. But on Facebook, to everybody that was out there watching, everything was perfect. Everything was, just incredible. A great example would be, last night, I know you watched, I interviewed this lady named Tracy Bible Rollerson. If you look at her, there's this beautiful woman that's just incredible, but when you hear her story, it makes your chin drop, so yeah, the Facebook fantasy world, that's kind of, the filter that, not necessarily the filter that makes you look good. There's not much I can do to help myself look good. But it's just, what goes out there. Right. And I don't care. I just put it all out. That's just the way it is.
So I'm going to throw this one out to the group. You're at lunch, you're with your friends. Does the cell phone go away? Do you keep it out? How do you feel when I'm sitting here going, oh, I'll be right with you?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Oh, wait a minute. So what's that? Well, I can, everybody's world, kind of know what I think about that right now, but yeah.
I have something on that. Several years ago, my sister looked at me and said, do you have any idea what it's like to invite you and Alan over for dinner and you sit and talk on your cell phone?
Oh.
And it stopped me. I mean, I appreciated it, but Alan and I decided several years ago that when we're out, the phones are away, because I do think it's very rude. And when I have lunch or if I'm in a meeting, I don't take my cell phone out, and I'm very nice about it, but I said, I'm going to put my cell phone in my purse, because I think it's such a thin line there, but I think it's also about etiquette and how maybe our generation was taught something different than, we were taught to speak to someone and look at them and say, yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. And my nephew, who is 31, my sister taught him, don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to that person. I don't know that person. You don't have. And so I just think that sometimes we hesitate to tell people, I really wish you would just be here with me. If I'm having lunch with you and it's only going to be an hour, unless you're truly a brain surgeon and they're looking for you to save someone's life, it can really make that person feel bad, like Patty just did, if you're constantly looking at your phone, because the studies show it interrupts. I mean, I have lunch with people, and when they do that, I can't even remember what I was talking about.
Right.
And we go, now what were we talking about?
The flow gets
So maybe
going.
it's more of an etiquette thing.
Anyone else on that?
Yeah, I agree. To me, it's just like anything else. It's a case by case basis, and there are definitely certain things. And something that I always like to do is I actually will take my phone out and I make it obvious that I flipped it upside down and put it on the table so that I can't see it, you can't see it, nobody can see it. And if there's something that's urgent going on in my life, then I'm probably going to tell you that, and you're going to know that there's a chance I'm going to look at my phone. But otherwise, if we're at dinner, lunch, whatever, my phone's upside down on the table so that I can't see it. And I feel like that it being in my pocket, because if it's in my pocket and it vibrates or does whatever, and now I'm digging in my pocket, well, now it's pretty clear what's going on at that point. Something that I like to do, but I definitely think that it's important inside of a relationship, inside of any kind of a relationship, but a romantic relationship specifically. We have time where we've designated, like, okay, like when we eat dinner, the phone is not at the dinner table.
Oh, cool.
And I do think those things are important, because to Judy's point, I mean, once it comes out, it's whatever you were talking about is second base, because you're looking at your screen and that's what's capturing your attention. And, you know, something that I fight too is not only an in-person meeting, but now with these things, I can be on a phone call and I have my phone screen in front of me. And so
Wow.
I'll notice that I'm on a phone call, but I'm actually looking at my phone. And 45 seconds later, I go, I have no idea what this person has been talking about for the past minute,
Yeah.
because I've been on my phone because this is more important than whatever they're talking about. So I think it's just like anything else. You just have to prioritize. And I think we all like to believe that we can do 6 different things at once, but really you can only truly focus on one thing. And
Absolutely.
able to compartmentalize and juggle a bunch of different things. But if I want to really get something done and really give it attention, there's only one thing going on. You're not going to be able to divide your brain up 4 different ways and give 4 different things equal attention. It doesn't work. So for me, it's about setting priorities. And some lunches, like if I was at lunch with Brandon, I would have my phone out because, you know, conversation's probably not all that
This is your
interesting.
bro.
If I was at lunch with my mother, I wouldn't have my phone out at all. So it's case by case.
That's awesome.
Well, you know, I see the phone issue, and I'll just admit I am horrible. My phone is there. I'm attached. We went through that earlier, right? But you know what? Then we move into the world of Apple Watches. So we're constantly getting, so we're constantly getting messages on that. You know, you're sitting there trying to have a conversation and it's vibrating and you're like, okay, let me just quickly look and see, you know, what that is. So even remembering to turn the notifications off, you know, because you can easily set it when I leave, you know, no notifications until I leave, and those little things. And I had a friend actually call me on it the other day. They were like, hey, you keep checking your watch. I'm like, I'm sorry. You know, work is just going on, even though I'm here with you, and I'm just making sure someone doesn't need me to respond to something. But yeah, it made me really quickly mindful, turn the notifications off the watch and put the phone, you know, away.
It's Pavlov's experiment, you know, gone absolutely. We are the best out of it. You know, any of my clients are asked mostly to turn off all their technology when they come into the office, because it's about the rhythm. I think somebody mentioned it earlier. It's about getting into that rhythm, and you only get into a rhythm. And it's I was doing a late phone session with a client last night, and even though that was our designated time, this person needed to get off, and because somebody had knocked on their door, and you know, immediately it was kind of, it took us about 10 more minutes when they came back to get us going. And we were right in this pivotal point. And it was so frustrating because it just kind of got shifted. And it takes us a while to get back into that rhythm. One of the things that I really see in the office is the process addiction. This is going to be current because we have a whole bunch of folks at home that have had to be at home and are working, and they have their laptops. I am talking to client after client that they're saying, Patty, I thought I worked a lot before, and I'm working almost around the clock. And it's because they're coming downstairs and the work laptop's right there. Well, it's 5 a.m. Let me kind of beep on, and they're beeping on. And then it's like they're sitting there in the evening, and that computer's still sitting there. So it lands in their lap and they're answering emails. I'm watching people go from having really long work days to they are on their technology devices at least 15 to 20 hours a day. And it is going to be something as we move into this future that we have never seen in the likes before, is try to help getting people out and coming back to the office, and how to break this process addiction. I have 3 children in my office right now that one of them is 17 hours a day between video games, Netflix, social media, 17 hours a day. Now we've gotten that person down to about 4 hours a day. And to me, that's just huge process, you know, a huge progress. But I think that's one of the things that everything I've heard you all talk about It's about setting boundaries.
Yeah.
I've heard somebody say it's about case to case, it's about where we are, but it's about learning how to set our boundaries and what a struggle that's going to be. I will even contend that putting your phone upside down is still meaning that you're interested in that phone more than me. I'd rather see it in the pocket, to be honest, and you turn off the notification for an hour, because you can do that. But when studies have shown when it's still on the desk, it still means that that thing right there is more important than this. And that's the human connection that I'm so concerned about, that we have totally lost the ability to intimately connect. Back to Lindy's point, it's not about just information in, information out. Are we connecting? Are we more involved with people? Are we staying communicated? This country will see PTSD in the years to come because of the current situation and what's going on. And technology's been helpful, and yet it's also creating some real difficulty for people.
You talking to me right now about unplugging?
Oh, yeah, no, you who's on, no, yours is 22 hours right now, the way you're handling things, but you go for it. It's good timing for you.
That's right. The sprint.
Wow.
I was going to ask Brandon because I know I know more about him than anybody else on this panel. As
Hey.
somebody that, as somebody who is used to going into an office, like I work remote 365 days a year. So I've told people that I've probably been affected less than a majority of the modern workforce who's had to go home and create new routines. My routines really haven't changed all that much. A couple of projects that I've been working on have had international dimension to them, and so working in different time zones. But that's not necessarily a result of the pandemic. My question for you, Brandon, because I was thinking about this morning. This is my office, right? And so now it's everybody's office. And do you feel that, like, when you were going into an office every day, a physical office, that when you left at 5, 6, 7 o'clock and went home, there's now a boundary that you're home and you're done working, but now that you never transport physically to an office and then you never come home, do you feel that you're always on now more than you were when you had a physical space to go to during the day? And do you now feel like there's no business hours, so to speak, like everything is on?
Yeah. I think it depends, honestly. Certainly in the situation that we're in now, working remote, it's a lot easier to stay connected, stay plugged in, so to speak, all day. But when I say it depends, I think it depends on the people you work with. And I'm speaking specifically to your manager and what they expect out of you. Because I've had two different types of managers. One where he was plugged in all day, every day. So you feel like you have to be plugged in all day, every day. Because if he's going to email you at 8 o'clock at night, then like you want to impress your manager and want to impress your boss. So you feel like you feel obligated to stay connected. Where currently I'm fortunate to have someone who doesn't expect me to be plugged in all day, every day. Because they're very family oriented and they like to be unplugged themselves. But I do see people that I work with, usually when we're in the office environment, when they leave work, they leave work. But now I notice that person is sending emails at 7, 8 p.m. So it's definitely easier to stay unplugged when you're going to the office, leaving the office. The leaving the office is the physical act of, okay, I'm done with my work, time to focus on family, enjoy my life outside of work. But maybe it depends on your setup at home. If your office is your bedroom, then it's very hard to stay unplugged. But if you have a separate office environment that you can walk into and mentally break yourself away, I think that helps as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that that's perfect. What you just said, Brandon. My son got out of college, graduated from college, started a job, and he was working in a job where he had 4 different team leads. And on Friday afternoon, he would get a list that said, "Hey, next week we need to have these things ready to go." So, as a 22-year-old college graduate, what do you think he did all weekend? And they weren't saying that you needed to go home and you needed to work all weekend, but
Yeah.
for him, they were saying go home and work all weekend. That's how he took it. So he was plugged in all the time. So he left that job. Now he works for a huge company, a big company. And this company, he goes to work at 7, takes a 30-minute lunch break, and he's off at 3:30. And at 3:30, he's done. When he checks out, he's done. So the first day he started working, the vice president, the guy who hired him, sent him an email and said, "Hey, just want to welcome you to the team. That's great." So he responded that night at 8 o'clock and said, "Hey, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for letting me be a part." The next day when he got to work, his manager said, "Hey, Braden," he said, "don't respond. When you're off the clock at 3:30,
Oh, I
you're
love
off
that.
the clock." And so this is a big company, but that's their beliefs. And and it had come back down from the vice president to her to tell Braden that, "Hey, when you're unplugged and when you're off the clock, you're off the clock. When you're working, you're working." And it just two
Love that.
two big dynamics. So I agree with you, Brandon. That's interesting.
And it's the role models, right? So I always tell people that and I try to teach this all the time to businesses that I go in. It's about what you want to see out of your employees, and you role model that. If you're going to send out emails at 3 a.m, somebody is going to be thinking, "Oh my God, I need to answer that," when the person was just sending it because they just happened not to be sleeping or whatever. But I always tell the bosses, the managers, set the tone, because every email can be sent by a scheduler versus sending it at 2 or 3 in the morning and having expectations. What is the expectation? Braden's manager set the expectation of when you're off, you're off. And unless we set that tone, people aren't going to understand and feel like they need to respond. I had a professor that wanted me to do a project, and first thing I qualified is, "You send emails at 2 or 3 in the morning every night." And she said, "Yeah, I don't sleep." And I said, "So what's my expectation, that I'm on?" And she said, "Oh my God, no. Like, respond to me when you feel like responding to me the next day." So it's about asking, but it's also about how do we get this generation of all of us that are on here to get the message across about setting boundaries about what is the expectations.
Hey, Lindy, what you got?
I was just about to jump in. I was just thinking it's interesting how we as adults or even parents try to manage today the screen time and the technology usage of our children and of younger generations. And there are mechanisms in place for us to do that with parental controls and screen time adjustments. And I just find it so interesting that no one's doing that for us, but we make it such a point, and sometimes we pay money to do that for our children because we know the importance, but we don't implement it for ourselves. And I just find that such a, kind of like that catch-22. And I do kind of, just real quick, circling back, I am guilty a lot of being on the phone and not being present in the moment. And that is something I struggle with just in my social circles. And even in my relationship with my husband, we have like kind of grown up through the advancements in technology together over the past 15 years. And it's so interesting looking back, just the arguments and the little things that if we had just had some education on setting boundaries and understanding what healthy, communication expectations are, it's just such simple things that can really mitigate or minimize some of the conflict that happens in relationships. It doesn't have to be a spouse, it could be a partner, it could be your children. And that's something that I have taken a deeper interest in understanding communication boundaries to include technology. So that's a new kind of journey for me, and making sure that I'm implementing for myself what my expectations are for my daughter and others.
Yeah, I gave somebody a challenge this weekend, one of my clients actually, and to see their face was amazing. I said, I want 4 hours where there's no technology. And I thought the person was going to have a heart attack. It was literally withdrawals just with the mention of not having anything for 4 hours. And I said, do you think you could get an hour? Well, I'll try an hour. I mean, it's just amazing. Like you said, somebody said, I can't leave home without it. I have to turn around and get the car. Judy, I'm real curious about, just for a few minutes, I know we're getting close to ending here, but a realtor, I always feel a realtor is on 24/7. Like, can you turn it off? Can you be able to go to dinner? Can you say, hey, I'm going to take this hour and not be on my phone?
I will tell you that word expectation is a very big word, and what I have managed to do in 27 years. I used to kind of view myself as a Pop-Tart, just up and down and up and down and up and down, and I was miserable. And I shared with you not long ago when we were past each other walking our dogs. I had a very scary experience last year where I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And went to the emergency room, and I was told for the second time by Dr. Mona Shaw, who is an incredible holistic cardiologist here, you are doing this to yourself, because I was allowing everybody to just, I always felt like they were just taking a little piece of me all day long. And so what I do when I list a property is I let them know, here are my hours. My family will tell you, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, my cell phone's on vibrate. It's in the kitchen. It never comes in the bedroom.
Love it.
Alan's the same way. But and one of the things that I do for myself is because I've been working from home since 2005, so I love it. I'm accustomed to it. I'm very disciplined. But when my dog wants to go out, I don't take my phone with me. And we have a 20-minute route in the afternoons. Now in the morning I do, because I listen to podcasts. But a lot of it is just really letting someone know I have a family. I have things that I need to do.
Okay.
But it's hard, because when you see that text, sometimes you say, it's just as easy for me to just go ahead and take care of it. But I'm a very early riser. So like an example, yesterday I'm walking Allie at 7:15 and I'm thinking, oh, I got to let Lourdes know that we're closing at 10. And I reach for my phone to text her. I'm like, you can't text somebody at 7:15 in the morning. It's too early. Because even if they're not working in my world, I just think that's inappropriate. And it could be a generational thing. But the realtor thing is really hard, only because you have to let people know how you want to be treated. And I think our generation might be.
What, Alex?
I'm sorry?
How often do you get pushback in setting those expectations? Like if you're meeting with a potential client and you're trying to set that expectation, how often do they say that doesn't work for me? Like I need you on 24/7.
Well, not very often. And honestly, not trying to be rude, but if someone expects me to be on 24/7, I'm not the realtor for them.
Sure.
Because I can't do it. And I know that. But I think that most people, all of my clients certainly say, now I do clarify that with, hey, look, a contract comes in, that's my job. I'm working on a contract, I'm texting, I'm talking, I'm doing whatever I need to do. But I think a lot of it is just that perception that people have. We were talking about Facebook. I think it's that perception people have. It's messy in the middle.
Well,
It's
and I
ugly
think
in the
my
middle.
perception was the question, right? I think you're on 24/7. I love the fact that you said 7:30, 8 o'clock. I remember when Kylie was here one day, the phone pinged on the counter, and she went and she caught an eye of the clock in the kitchen. She went, oh, I'm not answering that. It's not 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever her time was. And I was like, wow, that's that's so beautiful to see that, hey, I'm actually on vacation and it's too early and I'm not answering. I know that we are at this is one of those conversations. I'm looking at Matt because I can always, I'm starting to read him and going, hey, Patty, it's an hour. So I like to be very respectful of everybody's time. I think this particular topic is one that could be talked about time and time again with a lot of different people and a lot of different things. And I know we all have really strong views. I know I'm very passionate about that. My outgoing comment to everybody is to learn to place boundaries, challenge yourself to take tech time out, whether it's an entire day, maybe it's on a weekend, maybe it's an hour. Turn off all your notifications, everybody, because I really believe that you'll look at your phone often enough. Just to see, I don't need a ping and a ding to tell me that an Instagram message came in or a Facebook note came in or a message. I look at the phone. The only ringer I only have a ringer on my phone, and it's made me so much happier not to be going all the time. So placing boundaries. Please remember that if you want to make a connection, a more intimate connection is what I hope everybody hears from this, is that requires a voice. It requires intonation of seeing somebody's face. It's an expression. It's all of that. So if there are people that you really want to connect to, please do it that way versus a thumb. And yet thumbs are important. I'm not disagreeing with that. But again, it's about learning how to place boundaries. And next week, we'll be doing chapter 5. I hope to see us all back. I thank each and every one of you for joining us, especially those of you who came from San Francisco, wink, wink, Ellen, and Brandon out from San Diego. So Matt, get us out of here.
Yeah. Okay. So, remember, you can follow Patty on Convene. We'll be putting all these chapters of her book inside of Convene. Make sure to go on Amazon, order her book. And then you can come and join in on Convene where we're talking about all these videos will be there. So this has been awesome. I want to say, I'll close it with one last thing. I said I'd tell the story. There was a gentleman who wrote a book. He wrote fiction books and he writes fiction books and he writes about Marines, but he takes real Marines and he makes them into stories. The lead character of his book last Saturday night, of one of his main books that's used in PTSD, a lot of circles on training PTSD, is the main character last week committed suicide. This has been such a fundamental change, and for this gentleman, on coming back and losing that human connection. So, make sure, and to Lindy, to go to your story, hey, let's all reach out. If you know somebody who's not talking, you're not hearing from, you got a friend, make sure to reach out to them. Pick up the phone, talk to them. How are you doing? How are things going? Because, this is a tough time for everybody. So I appreciate it.
Don't ask how are you in a text. You're going to be lied to every single time.
That's right. So I appreciate everybody being on. We'll do
too.
it next Friday. We'll do it again, 9 a.m. And thanks for everybody being on. We had 2 people in California this time, which was wonderful. You can take your filter off whenever. So anyway, thank you very much, guys. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And Anthony, I'll talk to you later today.
Thanks for hosting.
See
Thanks,
ya.
guys. See ya.